All right, for some of you that don't know, Caterpillar Incorporated got in the motor grader business when they purchased Russel grading manufacturer in 1928. And so leading up to that point, Russell had a whole line of pull graders, elevating graders, dump wagons, all kinds of things. They even sold culverts and bridge components. But this is an early version of their Motor Patrol number 3. They had a 1 and a 2 as well. And this one happens to be powered by a McCormick Deering 1020 motor. So later, they also offered this particular grader with a power unit of a 15. They had a 10 as well. They used a 20, a 25, and even a 28. So this is prior to Caterpillar taking ownership of Russell. But this was bought by George Logue of Williamsport, Pennsylvania. He had a large collection of Caterpillars, and he was a expert machinist and made a lot of patterns to reproduce parts in the early days. But when they had his estate sale, Ken purchased this for the collection here at Edaville. This is kind of a unique design where it's got single wheel but dual. So a lot of the graders offered a number of different combinations where you had single wheel, single axle, dual wheel, single axle, single wheel, dual axle, and this one's a tandem, dual wheel, dual axle. But still, it has the flavor of the early pull graders where the grader part is still hand control, raise and lower. You could angle the blade or the wheels, excuse me. Same old gearboxes. You put grease in here to lubricate the worm gear. You know, pretty rudimentary. There really wasn't a whole lot of control for the engine aspect of it. You'd put it in gear, release the clutch, one of the wheels would turn the steering, and you were certainly busy because there's a lot of hand controls. This was in the early day of motor graders, so this was an improvement of a pull type grader. So anyway, it's a unique piece. You don't see very many versions still around of the Russell motor graders. Speaking of Russell, we've got a Russell elevating grader back here. It's also powered by a McCormick Deering power unit. If you don't know what an elevating grader is, basically there's a disc. A lot of times they call it a coulter. It's a plow in essence. They would scoop dirt, throw it onto a conveyor belt. The conveyor belt would carry it up and dump it into a wagon on the other side. So the purpose of the power unit was mainly to run the conveyor belt. It didn't power the unit, it had to be pulled, drawbar, and a lot of it was hand controlled. There'd be an operator's platform here, wooden boards that you'd stand on, and you more than likely would have at least 2 people helping you operate it. One guy, he's watching the conveyor belt, making sure it's dumping where it needs to be in the wagon. The other guy controlling where the coulter is, he can raise and lower it. And it was a busy unit. So you can see the drive shaft would come out of the back of the power unit to this sprocket, which turns this gear, which drives the conveyor belt. This one doesn't have a belt on it right now, but this is a Russell, probably 1920, 22 maybe version, maybe a little older than that. They made 3 different sizes, and this is the largest one. Caterpillar was formed by 2 different companies, Holt Manufacturing and Best Manufacturing, in 1925. And the Holt lineup consisted of 3 different models, and we've got them lined up here. We've got a 2-ton, we've got a 5-ton, and we've got a 10-ton. And so when they merged, Caterpillar consisted of these 3 Holt models, and then Best offered the version Caterpillar 60, which was a Best 60, and a 30, which we have sitting over there. But some unique differences about the Holt primarily manufactured products for the military, so simplicity wasn't always an option when you get the government involved. You can look here and see the track design had a lot of moving parts. It articulated here at this pivot point, had a lot of rollers. You had to lubricate parts of it. The engine was okay, but it had a belt. Well, this one you can't see very well, but the early Holts had belt driven. Best, he manufactured products mainly for the agricultural industry, so the design was much simpler. So these were produced primarily for military purposes. This is probably a 1916 to 1920. I'd have to look at the serial number to know exact. This is a 5-ton, used for pulling smaller artillery. This is larger artillery. 2-ton would be primarily used for pulling like supply wagons or moving equipment around on the battlefield. If you notice, all of them offer really no protection for the operator. A military version Holt 10-ton, you may have seen in our previous videos, would have armament plating around the motor and the fuel tank, and this one does not. This is not necessarily a military version, but you get the idea. Caterpillar decided early on that the Holt series of tractors didn't gain much popularity because of the complexity of their manufacture, the reliability, things wore out quicker, that type of thing. Holt had the manufacturing capability, but their design just wasn't quite as good as the Best design. Best had a better product and a dealer network in the continental U.S. versus Holt had the manufacturing capability, and they were designing product for the military and overseas efforts, so they didn't really have a dealer network. That's why they made a perfect marriage. The Holt offered the manufacturing capability, Best offered the dealer network, and the Best design. So you can see on this, this is considered a snow application unit, or winter package you may call it. It would have a hood like this. There would be a shroud that would cover here that's missing. A lot of times these would have a cab with a fuel tank behind the cab. These are snow cleats. But you could get the Caterpillar 60 or 30 in a number of different setups, combinations. But you have 4 cylinders. So I think it's 6.5 or 5-inch bore, 6.5-inch stroke maybe. Don't quote me on that. Well, maybe 6-inch bore, 8-inch stroke. I forget. We'll have to look it up and see. But it's gear driven. The fan, the governor, the water pump, and the magnet are all driven off the gears on the front. You can see the governor is here, the water pump is here. This one does have a generating unit. There would typically be lights on the winter package. The water pump, the magneta, it's all one shaft. Simple design. You could take the covers off, access the crank if you needed to, bottom of the pistons. You could rebuild the engine without taking really much apart, because you could pull the pistons out the side. You would have to drop the belly pan to get the crank out, but clutch design was fairly simple. The rear end, the drivetrain, the undercarriage is basically the same design they have on tractors today. You've got carrier rollers on the bottom, track rollers on top, basic sprocket. This is a snow sprocket. It has access to get material out. As snow would compact in there, it would push it out the side. It has a equalizer bar for the engine that's spring mounted. It's pretty simple design, easy to work on, maintain.
So you keep throwing around this term snow package. What do you mean by that?
A snowcat?
Like you said, there's a snow sprocket, snow this, snow that. What do you mean by that?
Well, they offered a winter package. We'll just call it a winter package, where the engine was protected by, this is not the right hood, but a hood like this keep the heat in the engine. Therefore, the heat could transfer into an operator station, so there would be a cab or something here, that would protect the operator from the elements. Whether it be a snow plow, they're pulling logs out of the woods, what have you. There's another example, I believe over in the other building we can look at that has more of the features.
What do you mean by a snow sprocket?
A snow sprocket, well, your typical sprocket, let's go look at another one over here. See how this sprocket fits right in where the pins are. There's really not much of a relief on the side.
Like to where the pins can slide back and forth?
The pin just goes right in.
Yeah.
All right, on the snow sprocket over here, you see it's got a much larger relief cut into it. So as material, snow would build up in these. As it married with the pin, it could push the material, the snow, out when the pin set into the valley of the sprocket.
So the edges of the valleys are tapered there?
Yeah, right here. It's hard to see in here, but.
And it's easier for the sprocket has bigger teeth.
Yeah. Well, not necessarily bigger teeth, but it has a relief cut in it so the snow wouldn't compact and just fill up in the chain. It would give it a chance to force out. We were talking about the winter package on the Cat 60 in the other building there. This is a snow plow. It just happens to be on a diesel 50 unit, but imagine the Cat 60 behind this snow plow, and it would have a cab like this, very similar, a hood. There would be side curtains most likely. This one, it even has a wood stove in the cab to help keep the operator warm. But the concept basically would be the same on a 60 platform. But this gives you a good idea what a winter package might be. The operator would be right inside here. Visibility certainly would be difficult, especially in a snowstorm. You just hope you're on the right road, and then you'd have to manually adjust the snow plows. But right here is the little homemade heater that's inside the cab that the operator would have to feed to help warm him up on those cold northern winter nights. Well, this is a bucket trencher, an early one. I'm not sure of the brand, maybe a Keystone or a Buckeye, but they were designed for laying pipe work, like early municipal work in towns or cities. And so it has a large wheel on it with these individual buckets that you can see on here. And they'll have teeth on them or a cutting edge. So as it came around, they would scoop up the dirt. And the dirt would fall out onto this belt, and the dirt would eject to the side of the ditch. So it was a real fast way to produce a ditch versus hand digging. And so this one has a hit and miss engine that would power the unit. So it's designed to move slowly because this particular model can't dig that fast, especially if you have real hard ground. But you can see all the gears for different speed selection. Lots of moving parts in here you have to maintain and lubricate, but it's a beast of a unit. It is on track, so you could go through softer ground versus a wheel unit. You have a lot of PSI in a small area, therefore it sinks. So the purpose behind the track is to spread your weight out over a larger area, which lowers the PSI on the ground.
If you enjoy this type of content, be sure and hit that like and subscribe button down below. There's more videos just like this one on its way, so I'll see you over there.